Hi, dear listeners. Tonight's story is The Girl Who Spoke to Shadows. Let's begin. The night Lira was born, the sky over her village split open with a streak of silver lightning, not fierce, not violent, but soft, like the sky whispering a secret. Every villager who witnessed it felt the same strange sensation, as if the night itself had bowed to welcome a child. Lira grew up quiet, observant, and always listening, not to people, but to things no one else could hear. When she walked by walls, they softly hummed. When she stepped on stones, they whispered old memories. When she sat beneath trees, the shadows around her leaned closer, almost protectively. Most children played with friends. Lira played with silence, and silence often spoke back. At first, people in the village simply smiled. "She has a wild imagination," they would say. But when she turned 12, something happened that changed their smiles into fear. One afternoon, Lira wandered toward the old abandoned well at the edge of the forest. Its stones were cracked, covered in moss, and everyone said it was haunted. Children were forbidden to go near it. But Lira felt drawn to it, as if something inside was calling her name. "Don't go," the shadows whispered around her feet. "There is grief down there." But Lira had never been afraid of shadows. They had always watched over her like gentle guardians. She leaned over the edge of the well and whispered, "Is someone there?" The air changed instantly. A cold breath rose from below. Then a small, trembling voice, a child's voice, echoed back. "Please, help me." Lira's heart stopped. Someone was alive down there. She ran to the village, shouting for help. At first, people didn't believe her, until they heard the voice too. Men rushed with ropes. When they pulled the child up, everyone gasped. It was a boy no one had ever seen before. No village recognized him. No nearby town had reported a missing child. He was pale, shaking, and clutching Lira's hand so tightly his knuckles went white. When they asked him his name, he whispered, "I don't know." When they asked where he came from, he stared at Lira and said, "She knows. She heard me first." From that day on, Lira was no longer treated as imaginative. She became dangerous. Children avoided her. Adults whispered when she walked by. Even the shadows around her seemed darker now, heavier, like they were preparing for something. The boy they rescued stayed in the healer's hut. He barely spoke, except to Lira. He watched her with the strange mix of fear and awe, as if she were both the light and the darkness at the same time. One night, the boy tugged on her sleeve and whispered, "Lira, I remember something now." She leaned closer. "What?" He swallowed hard. "The shadows, they didn't want to hurt me." His voice trembled. "They were hiding me." He looked around nervously. "Hiding me from the one who walks without a shadow." Lira froze. A chill traveled down her spine. "What does that mean?" she whispered. The boy shook his head violently. I don't know, but I think he's coming." A sudden breeze extinguished the candles, and for the first time in Lyra's life, the shadows around her didn't move. They stood still, frozen in fear, as if something far darker had entered the village, something that even shadows refused to approach. And as the night stretched on, the village dogs began to howl, the wind stopped blowing, and the moon dimmed, fading into a strange gray color. The boy's voice cracked. "He's searching for me, and he will find me." Lira took the boy's shaking hand, not because she knew what to do, but because something deep inside her whispered, "This is the beginning." The beginning of something she was born to face, something tied to the lightning that welcomed her into the world, and something tied to the shadows that had been whispering to her all her life. The night grew heavy around Lyra's home. The boy, still trembling, sat beside her on the floor, wrapped in a blanket. He stared at the door as if expecting someone to walk through it any moment. Lyra's grandmother, the only person who never feared Lyra's strange gift, lit a small oil lamp and placed it between them. "Tell me what you remember," the old woman said gently. The boy's lips parted. I wasn't always in the well," he whispered. "I was running. Someone was chasing me." "Who?" Lira asked. The boy shook his head. "I never saw his face, only the way the world changed around him." "What do you mean?" the grandmother asked. The boy swallowed hard. "Where he walked, shadows disappeared." Lira felt her heartbeat thump in her ears. All her life, shadows had been her silent companions. They whispered to her, warned her, protected her. She never understood why, but now she was starting to. The boy continued, voice trembling. He kept saying something, repeating it like a spell. Lira moved closer. What did he say? The boy squeezed his eyes shut. "Return what was taken." That's what he kept whispering, over and over. The grandmother stiffened. Lira caught the look on her face. "You know something," Lira whispered. The old woman hesitated for a long moment, then she sighed, a heavy, tired sigh that sounded like it carried years of secrets. "When you were born, Lira," the grandmother began, "your mother noticed something strange." Lira leaned in. "You were born during the lightning whisper," the grandmother said. "A night many believed was a sign, a boundary between the world of light and the realm of shadows thinning." The oil lamp flickered as if agreeing. "Most babies cry when they are born, but you didn't." "What do you mean?" "You didn't cry because," the old woman swallowed, "because the shadows rocked you. They held you like a cradle." Lira felt a chill she couldn't explain. "Your mother fainted from fear," the grandmother whispered. "But your father, he built a barrier of candles around you, praying it would keep whatever had claimed you away." Lira looked around the room. Shadows clung to her ankles like familiar pets, but now everything felt different. "What am I?" she whispered. The grandmother took her hand. "You're not cursed, Lira. You're chosen, born with a gift older than our village." Before Lira could speak, the boy suddenly gasped. His eyes widened, horrified. "He's close." The air changed instantly. The flame of the oil lamp stretched upward, then bent sideways against the wind, except there was no wind. And then everything went completely silent. The kind of silence that didn't feel empty, but watched. The shadows around Lira trembled, not playfully, not gently, but with fear. A cold, deep voice echoed from outside. "Return what was taken." Footsteps approached the door, slow, measured, and completely silent, as if whoever walked had no weight. Lira grabbed the boy's hand, and the shadows swirled around her feet, rising like dark mist. The grandmother whispered urgently, "Lira, listen to them. The shadows won't abandon you." But Lira had never heard them sound like this. They weren't whispering advice. They were whispering one desperate word. "Run!" The door creaked. The boy whimpered. The voice on the other side whispered, "You cannot hide him." Lyra's breath shook. "Why is he after you?" she whispered to the boy. The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Because I stole something from him." "What?" Lira asked. The boy pointed at you. The door slammed open. A figure stepped inside, tall, pale, hooded, and horrifyingly wrong. He cast no shadow, not even in lamplight. The shadows around Lira recoiled. The figure raised a hand toward Lira. "You belong to me." And then the shadows erupted like black wind. They wrapped around Lira and the boy and pulled them both straight into the darkness beneath the floor. A heartbeat later, the world swallowed them, and they vanished. Darkness swallowed Lira and the boy whole. But it wasn't cold. It wasn't empty. It felt like falling gently into a place that knew her. A place that had been waiting for her since the moment she entered the world. The shadows carried her deeper, whispering in 1,000 voices. Home, safe, chosen. Lira opened her eyes and found herself standing in a vast underground chamber where darkness shimmered like glass. The ceiling glowed with drifting specks of silver, like stars trapped beneath the earth. The boy clung to her arm, shaking. "Where are we?" "The Shadow Realm," a voice answered. The voice didn't come from a person. It came from the shadows themselves, rising from the floor and shaping into a tall, soft-looking woman made of shifting dusk. Her form flickered like candle smoke, yet her face was gentle. "Do not fear, child," the figure said. "We have protected you since birth." Lira stared. "You know who I am?" The shadow woman bowed her head. "You are Lira, the first listener, the bridge between our realm and the world of light." Lyra's heart pounded. "Why me?" "Because," the woman whispered, "you can hear what others cannot, and you can command what others flee from." Lira swallowed, overwhelmed. "But who is the man chasing us, the one with no shadow?" The shadow woman's form trembled darkly. "He is Shadebreaker, a hunter. A being created long ago by those who feared the existence of the Shadow Realm. His purpose is to erase anything connected to us." The boy stepped back, horrified. "I stole something from him. That's why he took me. That's why he chased me." Lira looked at him. "What did you steal?" The boy slowly lifted his shirt sleeve. There, Burning softly on his arm was a tiny glowing mark, a crescent-shaped symbol made of flickering darkness. The Shadow Woman gasped. "You carry the mark of return." Lira frowned. "What does that mean?" The boy's voice shook. "It means I was supposed to deliver Lira to him." Silence crushed the air. Lira stared. "You? What?" The boy's eyes filled with tears. "I don't remember everything, but he took me first. He wanted me as a guide. He told me to find you and bring you back." "But why?" Lira whispered. The Shadow Woman answered softly, "Because Lira is the only one alive who can shatter the barrier between realms, or seal it forever." The chamber suddenly shook. A violent ripple tore through the darkness. The Shadow Woman gasped, "He is breaking in!" The walls cracked, light piercing through like blades. A cold voice echoed, "Return what was taken." The Shadebreaker stepped into the Shadow Realm. His presence burned the darkness around him. The boy screamed. The shadows collapsed in fear. The realm dimmed violently. Lira stood trembling, but she didn't step back. She stepped forward. "Why do you want me?" she demanded. The Shadebreaker's hollow face turned toward her. "You were born of a crack between realms, a mistake, a bridge that should never exist." He raised a hand toward her. "Your power binds the shadows to the world of light. Without you, they fade." The Shadow Woman gasped, "Lira, do not listen to him." But the Shadebreaker's voice grew louder. "You do not belong to the world of light. You do not belong to the dark. You are a flaw between them." Lira felt the words strike her like cold iron. All her life, people feared her, avoided her, whispered behind her back, and now she knew why. She wasn't meant to exist. The boy grabbed her hand. "You're not a mistake," he whispered fiercely. "You saved me. You heard me when no one else could." The Shadow Woman added softly, "You are not a flaw. You are the balance." Lira looked down at the shadows around her. They weren't trembling anymore. They were waiting for her to choose. She lifted her chin and faced the Shadebreaker. "I'm not returning anywhere," she said quietly. "Not to you." The Shadebreaker's voice deepened. "Then I will take you." He lunged, and the shadows exploded upward, not in fear this time, in obedience. They wrapped around Lira like armor, swirling around her arms, her hair, her legs. Shadows rose behind her like wings. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "Stop!" The Shadebreaker froze mid-step. Even he could not resist the command. Lira stepped closer, shadows storming around her like a living cloak. "You said I don't belong to light or dark." "Good." Her eyes glowed silver. "That means I belong to both." She raised her hand. The shadow surged forward, meeting the Shadebreaker in a blinding burst of darkness and silver light. A sound like thunder filled the realm. Then, silence. When the light faded, the Shadebreaker was gone. Nothing of him remained. The shadow realm steadied, walls mended, the stars returned. The boy stared at Lira in awe. "You saved us!" The Shadow Woman bowed deeply. You have done what neither light nor darkness could do alone. You are the balance that binds them, the listener who commands harmony. Lira, overwhelmed, whispered, "What happens now?" The Shadow Woman smiled. "You go home, child. Your journey with shadows has just begun, but for tonight, you rest." Darkness wrapped around Lira and the boy like a soft blanket, and they rose gently back to the world of light. When Lira opened her eyes, she was in her grandmother's house again. The candles flickered, the air was warm, the boy slept peacefully beside her. For the first time since she was born, the shadows around her whispered only one word: safe. Remember, even in the deepest darkness, a little courage can create its own light. And sometimes, the shadows we fear the most are the ones that end up protecting us. Remember, you are stronger than you think, braver than you believe, and worthy of every bit of magic in this world. Now, close your eyes. Breathe softly, and let your dreams hold you like the shadows held Lira, gently, safely, lovingly. Good night, dear listener, and have a good sleep.